honestly don't, but massive congratulations to the whole Intentional team, to Adam, to Chris. Yeah, this is a huge milestone, worth celebrating. Love the theme, love the song at the beginning as well. I don't know if anyone was listening along to the lyrics, but you guys have masterfully threaded this theme through today. And, I wanted to take a couple of minutes to unpack this. What can you do in 10? And it actually was, cool for me reflecting on that. And I've got a picture I want to share. So this picture, we were talking about it as a team actually quite recently. And I think this kind of sums up what you can at least set out to do in 10. So here we go. This is basically from A to B. And I think every idea and the seed of an idea starts out like that. If you're wondering who's in the foreground of that photo, I have gone to a lot of effort today. So that is Adam and Chris, bit of Photoshop work there. But this is also, it's you, it's me, it's us, right? And I think, when I look back to our seed of the idea in 2008, our A to B was imagine a world where as consumers, the products we chose righted a wrong, an injustice so dark that we don't think it should exist, which was extreme poverty. And we saw these two extremes of, the latest statistics say we spend $63 trillion annually on stuff. So as consumers, that is our spending. And at the same time, 736 million people were living in extreme poverty. That was before the pandemic. Now it's gone up dramatically. And we looked at that and thought, man, imagine getting to be a world where, product look different, the products we purchase. And I think the interesting thing about this point at the start of any journey is it looks so possible, looks relatively straightforward. I mean, we had dreams like this thing will be global in like a year, maybe, right? Like a year. And it seems kind of reasonable. It really does. And then reality kicks in. I think this is a great picture of really what it looks like going through like 10 years, going from A to B. This has certainly been our journey over and over again. And maybe it's been yours. I know that at the beginning of a journey, it's beautiful when it looks like this. And this kind of helps us all get in. Adam, I mean, hearing you talk about you had this plan to do everything, and then you realize, oh man, I got to specialize in one. There was some ups and downs that led to that decision. But here's what I think is really interesting. Because in 10 years, I know our experience has been, we've discovered how hard the journey is. And that's both beautiful and it's super challenging too. I'll give an example, like our first 3 years at Thankyou. I mean, if I could sum 3 years up, maybe in like 60 to 90 seconds, it was rough. I mean, our launch, if you know the story, began with a product recall because there was a labeling issue. We then relaunched 12 months later. Our factory didn't supply product. Over a 5-week period, we lost 300 of our 350 customers. We relaunched only to have a new distribution company we relaunched with go into liquidation. And then 2 retailers who were looking at our product both said no. Both came out with their own bottle of water at the time that went to funding water projects. And it was like exactly what we presented to them, and it kind of disappeared in front of us, and they played it out without us. And then one of the big supermarkets said, you're in, we got product ready. And then a new person took over and basically said, you're not in. The decision doesn't stand. It was with an old category manager. He had a big vision that included the big companies and, their own brand. And so that's like our 3 years kind of startup journey in a short period of time, but it kind of looks like this picture. But I think what's interesting too is that you do have some highs, and we've definitely had some highs at Thankyou. There are moments that you just go, how did we get here? Intentional helped us on this campaign, chapter 1, which was a huge success. If you didn't follow it, it was a really simple promise and an idea, which was, we said, hey, Thankyou stuck. I mean, we're in supermarkets. We had at the time 50 products. So if you're not familiar with the products, probably our leading product right now is our Thankyou hand wash. It's still the #1 hand wash in Coles and Woolworths. It was an epic journey how we got into Coles and Woolworths. But I want to focus on chapter 1 and this launch because we're putting a bold idea out there to the world. We said that, hey, we have a challenge in growing this vision. And the challenge is we don't have shareholders, we don't have investors. And so we need to find a way to scale this. And we wondered, what if we, the community of Thankyou, what if we grew this together? And the book was, I suppose, in part a crowdfunding campaign. The book was sold in these Newslink and Relay stores and the airports at a pay what you want price. It was sold online at a pay what you want price. And we set this really ambitious target to raise $1.2 million. And, I mean, in a sense, for if you want kind of a read on, is that big or not? A best-selling book in Australia sells 5,000 copies. An author will make between $1 a book to $10 if they're very lucky. So at best, maybe $50,000. We set this target for 1.2 million. And, I won't give all the credit to the digital ads that were part of it, but like all of us came together. We pushed this idea out into the world. It was scary as anything. And we saw people kind of pay 5 cents for the book. But then we saw people pay like $7,000, then $10,000, $50,000. That was a moment of like, how did we get here? It was a high of highs. This book opened up doors all around the world. We raised our target of we hit 1.44 million in the first 28 days, and it's gone on to raise over $2.6 million. But the book opened doors, and there was another moment where I was literally like, how did we get here? We'd gone in 2008, sitting around our homes and garages, dreaming of one day this idea maybe starting to take a stand on the global stage. And I was at a conference. I was invited not to speak, just to attend. And I kind of went for it. It was the Obama Foundation Summit thing. And I thought, that sounds really interesting, and made my way over to Chicago. And then there was, as I'm in registration, kind of queuing up to register, these two girls who were part of the organizing team came over, and they said, "Are you Daniel Flynn?" And I was like, "Yeah." They said, "You didn't get back to our email last night." I was like, "Oh, look, I don't even know what day it is, jet lag." And I said, "That's okay, but tomorrow President Obama has selected 3 young people, including yourself, to be interviewed on the live stream. Are you up for it?" And this was one of those moments, like, how did we get here? It was like a high of highs. It was crazy. It was like, if you've heard me talk about this before, I've referenced the Secret Service coming in and locking down the room. Like, it was the most formal, like, movie moment thing I've ever been part of, that one of the Secret Service counted down 100 feet, 80 feet, like our hearts, like the 3 of us, we were an emotional mess, probably on the inside, but trying to play it cool on the outside. And when President Obama came up, he was clearly briefed well. He shook everyone's hands. He knew our names, which was nice. And he asked how we're doing. I said, I hope you're not nervous for the interview. He said he's not. And I thought, why did you say that? But this was his first post-presidency appearance after the election. And in the interview, he asked the question, "Well, when's Thankyou coming to the world?" I'm like, "Oh, President Obama, great question. We're launching in New Zealand. After that, one day we want to get to the world." And that was a how did we get here moment. But I mean, there's other how did we get here moments, like about 3 hours after that exact interview, where we gave a hand wash and a pack to him. He said, "Thank you." He said, "Oh, Michelle and the girls, we wash our hands. This is great." I was like, great. And then 3 hours later, I'm on the phone to one of our team, and we had an issue with the product. And we found ourselves the next morning calling one of our major retail partners and making a decision to withdraw it off the shelf voluntarily. It wasn't a health and safety risk, but we kind of messed up our own process of product development, and we felt the product was subpar. It wasn't meeting the vision we had for making remarkable product. And so we made a tough call to pull it off the shelf. Anyone who knows a voluntary recall or withdrawal, they're very expensive, very, very, very expensive, very hard. And it sucks on every level. I mean, that was like a high of highs and a low of lows in the space of literally hours. And you ask yourself, how do we get here? We had a moment last year. I mean, 2020, I'm sure everyone on this call had a moment. But ours was, it was super tough. We came into the year probably at our weakest financial point in Thankyou's history. And it was really weak. It's sort of it was off the back of once we launched into New Zealand with the money we made from chapter 1, and once we launched into the baby category, we thought, hey, Thankyou's got great momentum. This is going to be easy, A to B. Turned out A to B would be the fight of our lives, and it would be like 1,000 ton of bricks coming down on us as we realized now when Thankyou enters a category, lots of people know it may have potential. And we just saw in the nappy category, price wars and promotions like the category hadn't seen in years. New Zealand, some of the ways the market responded, you would have thought we were launching in America. I bumped into a CEO of a big kind of, I suppose, competitor, but I just sort of made a passing comment. I was like, oh, it's not getting easier launching things. And he said, yeah, but early days, no one saw Thankyou as a threat. And so we came kind of out licking our wounds from the New Zealand launch, from the baby launch, and it was a really kind of rough journey. I think though, when we sat there at the start of 2020, we had to make some really tough decisions around just finances, and then the pandemic hit, and that was interesting because, well, hand sanitizer sales went up, hand wash sales went up, but supply chain at the same time fell apart. Now, just so this talk doesn't fall apart, Adam, Chris, I'm so sorry. I was going to hit go on like a timer, so I have like no idea on time. So just feel free to just for full transparency to everyone on this, you have a minute left or whatever you want to do, but kick me off whenever you need to. But last year we had this moment where in March, we're at 40% production of normal sales levels. So off a weak financial point, I mean, this is bad. Then come April, we're at 40s and 50% of normal production. And so we saw financially the end of Thankyou as in the cliff, and that getting shorter and shorter and shorter. And we're thinking, man, this dream, this thing we're building, like A to B, this thing has literally about to fall off a cliff, and it hurt. I mean, for Justin, my co-founder, and I, and we're married, if you know our story, but these were hard days, man, hard nights. They were for all of our team. But what I love about humans is humans who have shared vision that's bigger than themselves will always find a way. They'll always find a way to get to be. Shout out to one of our team, Kirk. If he's not on this call, but if he was, he would somehow write in the chat, it wasn't me, it was everyone. And he's right, but he also truly led it. We were able to build our supply chain back up, not locally, but internationally. We found businesses around the world who had their own issues where they were supplying hotels and airlines, and then they weren't getting sales. And so we were able to find capacity there to meet Australian retail demand. And in the space of kind of 2 months of going down, we end up recovering. We end up supplying all major retailers, the Australian government, health facilities all around the country. And if you know the story from last year, we ended up making not just our most profit in a year, but we made more profit in the space of those few months than our 12-year history. And so Thankyou went from $7 million raised for our impact partners around the world to over $17 million, a further 10 million last year. So the journey is hard, it is rough, it goes up, it goes down. I'm just going to screen share for a moment here. If you've been following last year, we also launched this, No Small Plan. It's a bold invitation to the world because I think what Chris and Adam were talking about there, the idea of you can be a specialist. And I think at times, Thankyou, we tried to generalize on everything, but who do you partner with? And we threw out this invitation to the world. We said, hey, we want to take Thankyou to the world quickly. And we want to invite some of the biggest companies on the planet to take a look at it. And we proposed in a video that got a couple of million views. We proposed a partnership model similar to how Yeezy, the Yeezy shoe, is licensed to Adidas, or Starbucks have got a coffee, but they have licensed the manufacturing and distribution of that coffee pod to Nestle globally. And so we looked at a partnership where a company can't own Thankyou, no one ever can, but they could help make and distribute. And so we sent this invitation to, this is Unilever's head office in London. We put it in a 26-foot glass truck. We sent one to P&G in Cincinnati. We also invited 9 other global companies. And what was really interesting in this is we asked consumers to kind of add their weight. And we had people in over 38 countries. In fact, media in over 38 countries. I think we had 840 media features, something like 2.6 billion impressions. It's a random stat, but the point is the word got out, and it has entered an absolute roller coaster. In fact, these photos were taken from a team meeting last week where we kind of updated everyone on, hey, remember No Small Plan? Yeah. Find a partner? Yeah. This is the journey. We haven't announced publicly who's in, but it has been one heck of a roller coaster journey. You talk about good content for a future book, boom, we got it. It has been interesting seeing not just a response from 2 companies, and not just 11 of the biggest in the world, but also companies all around the world putting their hand up saying, hey, I could do Europe, I could do America, I can't do the world. And so we're sat back not to make a quick decision, but the right decision. And that probably leads me to my final point, as I have about a minute left. And that final point is, well, what can you do in 10 years? Yeah, I mean, you can have an idea, you can chase it, you can have some highs, you can have some lows, some moments of how did we get here. But I think you can also, discover more about who you are and then who you want to be. I think this process for all of us is a deeply personal and profound journey. We live in a culture that says if you haven't made it yet, you probably won't. But I listened to a podcast the other day and it really moved me. It was a leadership podcast, and he was saying that they looked at data over leaders in history, and they said, yeah, your best leadership decade is your 60s. I was like, what? Your second best is your 70s, and your third best is your 50s. Now, some of you on this call, that's kind of encouraging because you're like, oh, I'm not even at the third best yet. It's interesting because I think we live in a culture that is just so here and now and short. But if we take a 10-year-old kid, when we were 10, yeah, we'd learned a bit, but we had a long way to go. And we had a huge life ahead of us. And that's what I believe for Thankyou. That's what I believe for Intentional. That's what I believe for all of us. If we kind of set our sights on a long game, I know for me as a leader, it has been incredibly challenging, but also confronting to realize the change you want to see in the world really starts deep on the inside. And I have gone on a long journey on some of that, as walking through burnout, walking through like, wow, I absolutely do care way too much what people think. And that has some really bad side effects. I sat down with a counselor, psychologist. I thought I was only going to one session, and I think he thought it too. Because at the end he said, Daniel, you don't have a fear of failure. I told him I did. He's like, I think you have a fear of rejection. What if people reject you? I start crying. We spent like 2 years going deep. One of the best things I ever did. Why? Because now as we step up to the plate with ideas, and as we venture beyond our first 10 years into our second decade, we do it from a place of strength, not a place of trying to please. I've got a minute over, so let me just finish on this. In closing, in 10 years, one other thing you can do is you can pick up some great stories, some great friends, and some great business partners. So Intentional, thank you for the journey. We've loved working with you. I appreciate all your support. I'm sorry that our budget with you guys probably looks like that line up and down, down, up. But thank you for 10 years and happy birthday.